Lewis, it's very good to be talking with you. And, it's what's been quite a challenging but exciting time, as I understand it, for you in this extraordinary period of the last year or so.
Yeah, it has. It was a bit of a shock when everything started. Kind of this time last year when the whole COVID thing started, there was a massive downturn of work for the company, and the shock and the worry of never having experienced anything like this before. Then obviously after it had been around for a while, it was how can we survive it and get through it and get past it.
And I'm talking to you now, as I understand it, and you're in your office in Rochford in Essex. Is that where you are?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. I'm at my office at Leeming Brothers Fine Stationery at the moment, which is this lovely building here. And then through this window to my left is our workshop where we produce all of our stationery. But
you actually live at Benfleet?
Yes, yeah, I live in Benfleet, which is about 10-15 minutes away from the office, with my wife and my 5 dogs.
Well, Benfleet is ever engraved in my mind, because when I was quite a young man, we had a vicar who couldn't really type, but unfortunately carried on doing so. And he would then produce a newsletter on the old Gestetner Roneo system.
Yep.
And if you went wrong, it'd be full of X's to crossing out. But also he just put in the wrong thing. And we had a couple called Mr. and Mrs. Ison, very nice couple, and he'd been the church warden. And Ben put in the latest newsletter, "We are very sad to say goodbye to Mr. and Mrs. Ison, Nad his wife, who have gone to love in Benfleet." So I've got a very clear picture of what Benfleet must be like. Okay, so were you brought up in that part of the country?
Yes, yeah. I was born down here 30 or nearly 34 years ago now. Moved around a little bit, but stayed in the same area, in the area of Southend-on-Sea. And yeah, I'm still here now, probably 20 minutes from my childhood home. And
Southend's the sort of the local metropolis.
Yes, yeah. That's the closest big town to where we are, obviously with the seafront and the pier and all of that stuff that's nice to enjoy in the summer.
Yeah, yes, I was from North London, and we used to take trips down sometimes to the longest pier in the world.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the longest pleasure pier in the world. That for some reason that makes a big difference. I'm not quite sure why.
Oh, well, I suppose you'll have piers that go out for 4 miles for oil tankers to tie up or something.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And then were you at school around there in Southend, or?
I was actually at school in Rochford, which is obviously conveniently enough where I've ended up at work. I went to senior school at a school called King Edmunds, which I enjoyed, but I wasn't necessarily the brightest student. I was good at some subjects, and then there were other subjects that I really disliked and struggled with. So I just tried to concentrate more on the ones that I found myself being good at.
That sounds like most of us. Okay, and then did you go straight from there into an apprenticeship, or what did you do after school?
So when I left school, I went to college for a little while, but I stopped college after about 8 months because I was finding it wasn't really for me. Obviously because of that, I then didn't go to university either. I actually became an apprentice as a hairdresser. So I did that for two years. I did that and worked in various salons around Southend and Leigh-on-Sea. And then I decided I didn't really like that anymore. So I then went to work for E.ON, the energy company, where I worked in a call center for a little while. And then after that, I did work on B2B electric sites. So I did work on electricity meters for businesses, basically. And I did that for quite a few years until I accidentally started my print journey.
Great. Well, that's very interesting already. And if I may say so, the experience of the hairdresser was not left you behind completely, because I think you've got a great hairstyle now. So
Thank
doubtless
you.
you probably become sort of, think, well, I knew about that, so I can try different styles when I feel like it.
Yes, my hair did become a thing that it became very, very important to me because of that.
And then tell me, when you got into printing, and did that mean another apprenticeship or what?
Yes. So I kind of got into printing, as I say, completely by accident. Especially on the fine stationery side of things, as far as I was concerned, I was a normal person who knew about normal stuff. Printing was things like pamphlets and newsletters and newspapers and things like that. I met a chap through my father-in-law. We started having a chat, and he was asking me about my work. I told him what I was doing for Eon. He asked me if I liked it, and I said, it's not overly. It's a job. It was just a job for me to to make ends meet. And he told me that he was looking for an apprentice for his printing company. So I said, well, I don't really know what's involved in that, but I would be more than happy to come down to your workshop and have a look, see what it's about, and see if it's something that I'll be interested in. And then the following Saturday, I went to said workshop, and within about 5 or 6 minutes had completely fallen in love with the whole thing and decided that was it. I had my little moment, my little light bulb moment. I was like, this is what I'm going to do forever. And then
by then, had printing already become digitalized and computerized? I mean, presumably all the old systems of, litho and hotbed stuff and so on had all gone, have they?
Not completely, because that's actually what we still do.
All right.
But the thing that I brought to it, or at least I brought to our company, was bringing it up to speed with the more modern methods that you're referring to, like your digital and your Scodex and things like that. The company that I was doing an apprenticeship for, Empress, which is a 5-year apprenticeship to learn how to produce fine stationery. So it's a long time. They specialized in die stamping, engraving, foiling, litho, as you say, thermo, and letterpress. So all of what I like to refer to as proper print methods, as opposed to the digital ones. Not the kind of stuff where you push a button and it just pops out of a machine. These things they're a craft still. Everything is still handmade, plates are hand engraved, which is why the apprenticeship takes so long.
Right, okay, but I assume no one now deals with hot metal stuff, do they?
We don't deal with lead type anymore.
No.
But we do still engrave and hand engrave our copper plates that we use for some of the types of printing that we do. We still do that in-house here.
No, that's really interesting. So, and then, how did the move happen between Empress and Leeming Brothers?
So I was just a print apprentice at Empress, trying to work my way up to a master printer title. After 5 years, I got that, but I mean, it's still obviously a massive learning curve after that. It kind of never ends. But I finished my apprenticeship, and then I just became one of the lads, one of the boys in the workshop, who produced all the work that we were doing. Leeming Brothers at the time were a print company from down in Hampshire, who they were actually more of a design house. So we were actually doing a lot of their printing for them. They would send us the designs, we would print it, send it back, and then they would send it on to the client. We were doing that for a number of years. They then approached us and said, we're looking at stepping down and retiring. Would you like to buy it? And initially my boss said, no, I'm not interested, because he liked dealing with trade work. He didn't really want to deal with end users and direct to consumer stuff. I heard about it. I went home, spoke to my then she was my girlfriend at the time, now obviously my wife. We chatted about it, and she basically said, this could be the opportunity that you've been looking for. So I went in the next day, spoke to my boss and said, look, I really think it's a good idea and we should buy it, and it will give us the retail outlet that we've been talking about. So basically he bought it and said, there you go, don't muck it up. And from that point, I was running the whole company when I'd never run a company before in my life. So it was quite daunting at that point in time.
That really was hitting the floor running, as it were, then.
Yeah.
Is your wife a printer too, or?
No, she's not. She works in a school. She's a phase leader and senior management at a local school.
Right, yes, quite different. Well, that's quite interesting because it gives a different sort of cross-fertilization of things, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've always got stuff to talk about because our jobs are so different from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Okay, so tell us then a bit about Leeming Brothers then.
So yeah, as I say, Leeming Brothers was founded down in Hampshire by a man called Matthew Leeming. There was never a brother. He just thought it sounded very quintessentially British, calling it Leeming Brothers. There was only ever one. Yeah, as I say, we bought it in 2014 on the 24th of June, at which point is when that's when I started running it. As you say, it was hitting the ground running. I had to learn how to run a company, how to do accounts, how to design, because I'd never designed anything before, because I printed things that were already designed by other people. And of course, I also then had to learn how to kind of sell to people, because I was having to go out and meet with corporate clients and brides and try and sell our services and talk them into why should they come to Leeming Brothers for their stationery. So it was a very, very steep learning curve, but I absolutely loved it. So it didn't really feel like it was that much. It was hard work, but it didn't feel like hard work because I was just loving every second of it.
And where were Leeming Brothers in Hampshire? What part of Hampshire?
They were in Overton.
And when you then took over, did you bring staff with you from Hampshire, or did you start again, or?
No, we brought all the kit that they had, so all of the presses and things that they had, because they did do a little bit of printing themselves. We brought all of that to Essex, to where our workshop was, and absorbed that into all of our plant and machinery. But the members of staff there, there was only, because it was kind of only a design house, there were only the two chaps there, Kit and Mike. And they were the ones that were looking at stepping down. So basically they stepped down and then I just took over their place.
Oh, so that was a very, very good sort of changeover, really. And by doing what you did, presumably you then brought together design and printing.
Yes. So that's one of the reasons why I really thought it was a good idea, because previously we were via Empress, we were only producing work for the print trade, which is good work, but it's all stuff that's been designed by other people that you then have just to produce. And you also, one of the things, I'm a bit of a control freak. I like having control of all situations, and that's something that I didn't like about the trade side of things. We weren't the ones that were having to deal with the clients. We had a printer who had sent us the job, but the client wasn't ours, it was theirs. So if something went wrong, or if they did something wrong and the client decided to go somewhere else, in the end, we were the ones that ended up losing the job, even though we hadn't done anything wrong. And I just didn't like not having that level of control. Whereas with the Leeming side of things, because we're dealing directly with corporates and businesses and direct to consumer, I had full control over everything. So those relationships were mine to build with people. And I would become people's go-to, which gave us the control that we could do. And then we were able to suggest things to people. Have you thought about mixing digital printing and foiling and then a bit of embossing on this? And often they'll say, well, no, I didn't realize you could do that. And that's something that we tried to bring to it, because I was younger than a lot of the people that were working for Empress. I had obviously a bit of a younger mindset, and then we basically tried to combine the two to make something that people hadn't been doing before.
And you said as well, I think, that by effectively merging or taking over Empress, it was going to put you in touch with the retail world.
Yes, yeah.
Tell me what you mean by that. How did it put you in touch with the retail world?
Well, on the Empress side of things, so Empress at that time was still a thing. Leeming and Empress were run side by side to each other. But Empress, as I say, only dealt with trade, so other printers who had jobs that needed to be done, whereas Leeming dealt with retail. So I was dealing directly with businesses who needed printing. They didn't go to another printer and then it came to us. They came straight to us. And the same with on the retail side of things with private individuals who wanted personal stationery and wedding stationery and things like that, instead of dealing with a print company who's having to deal with a wedding planner who's then having to deal with the bride. I will deal with the bride directly myself. So then I can try and help her or help the couple into the kind of decisions that they think they want. There might be something that they think they know what they want, but they haven't seen something else yet. Obviously, that's my job to try and guide them along the process and help them along the way. And it's because of the personal stationery side of things that I actually got involved with stationers in the first place.
We'll come back to stationers in a moment. So, yeah, that's really interesting. So, I mean, does that mean that you, if you're dealing with brides and perhaps even sometimes bridegrooms and others, does that mean that you're dealing with people all over the country? Yes,
all over the world a lot of the time. Obviously, that took a bit of a hit when COVID happened, but as a general rule, pre-COVID times, yeah, we will be dealing with 15 to 20 brides at any one time, or couples, because it is quite often couples now. It's not just the bride that we deal with. Yeah, dealing with 15 or 20 odd couples. And a lot of them are predominantly in the south of England, but we do cover the whole of the UK. And then we've had some fairly good clients from over in Europe. We've had a couple in Australia, some really nice ones in America, and one of the biggest jobs that we ever ended up doing for a wedding was from Hong Kong.
And now tell me as well, during the COVID episode, you decided, because of the pressures that were applying at that time, making things very difficult, to start another company, Seedcard. Can you tell us what Seedcard is? What's the difference between that and what you've been doing with Leemings?
Yeah, so Leeming Brothers is essentially fine stationery. So it's the more artisan stuff. As I say earlier, things like die stamping and embossing, engraving, foiling, letterpress, more artisanal craft type things. When COVID happened, obviously weddings and events were one of the first things to go, and weddings and events, especially corporate events, probably catered for 60 or 70% of Leeming's turnover, which is a lot. And when that suddenly stops, it's a bit scary, because your cash flow obviously goes through the floor. You've still got members of staff to pay. But the main thing was I wasn't sure if it was going to survive or not. I genuinely didn't know. And I was scared. And at the time I was thinking, am I going to lose my job? I was put onto furlough, like a lot of people were. And yeah, I was scared that I was going to lose my job. So I was talking to a couple of friends of mine who own a different printing company, who Leeming Brothers does quite a lot of work with. And we built up a relationship over the last 5 or 6 years. And we had always said to each other that wouldn't it be lovely one day if we could actually do something together, not just work together like our companies do already, but actually have a company together, because there was just such good synergy between the three of us. They were in the exact same position as Leeming when COVID happened. The kind of work that they got in was even more wedding and events than mine was. So they were really hit hard by it. So yeah, they texted me one day and said, we've got an idea. Can we come over? So this was last summer. They came over and we all sat in the garden and started having a chat, and they told me about this idea for essentially a greetings card company, is how it started. That would its USP, so its unique selling point, would be that all the greetings cards were made of Seedcard. I was very intrigued. I went away and thought about it. I spoke to my wife again about it and kind of thought, well, what have we got to lose? So yeah, then we officially started that project in June 2020, the Seedcard company, and that was launched to the public on the 24th of February this year.
Amazing. And during this period, was it during this period that you actually then became the owner and MD and so on of Leemings as well?
Yes. So obviously things didn't obviously in a good way, but things didn't work out the way that I thought they were going to work out. I went into lockdown thinking I'm going to lose my job. I need to do something to, you know, to keep some money coming in and keep me employed. And then I basically I know lockdown isn't quite finished yet, but I basically ended lockdown, having started up that new company, but also then buying the one that I worked for previously. So now I've got both, which is amazing. I'm so grateful for those opportunities. But I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of work, and a lot of late nights and a lot of working weekends. But I'm also not going to lie, I love every second of it.
And how many people do you have working with you there now?
At Leeming, currently it's only myself and the master printer, officially. And then the chap who used to own Leeming, and Empress, who has obviously been in the print industry for a very, very long time and is a good fountain of knowledge. He now consults for us. So as and when we need a bit of help and that kind of stuff, he comes in and helps us out, or does stuff, you know, via Zoom and over the phone and things like that. So we're still keeping him in. So he's still got that whole thing of, you know, he's still in touch with the company that he had for such a long time. But then it can also go in a little bit of a new direction, with myself and Neil running it. And then for now on the Seedcard company, it is currently just myself, Jit and Kay. But as I say, we only launched 8 weeks ago. So we're very, very young, but it's going exceedingly well. Excuse the pun there. I only just thought of that one. So it may well be a case that it won't be long until we are in a position where we do need to bring some people in to help us, because it's really starting to pick up speed already.
So there's the key advert for you: exceedingly good cards.
Yeah, brilliant.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll take a cut. Right. Now, you said a bit earlier that you that's what took you into stationers. Can you say a bit more about that? Because you're now the chairman of Young Stationers, or yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I'm now the chairman of the Young Stationers, and I also sit in on the livery committee as well, which is good fun. Yeah, I basically when I started running Leeming, we did work for another one of the livery companies. We did work for the insurers. And we did odds and sods for a few others. So we did a little bit for gun makers, we did a little bit for armourers and braziers, we did a little bit for plasterers. But I kind of got I had a bit of a sticking point with, you know, sometimes you like to set yourself little goals and milestones. A little goal for me was I want to be the stationer that produces the stationery of the stationers. That was a milestone for me. I was like, if I can produce work for the worshipful company of stationers, then I'm doing all right for myself. Because that would be, you know, that would just be a great thing to be able to do. Didn't really know a way in. So I was starting to look around, trying to figure out how I could get in. And then I got an email from a gentleman called William Alden, who obviously we all know is the ex-clerk of the company. And it turns out, I wasn't aware of this, but he was one of Leeming Brothers' personal stationery customers. So we produced writing paper and note cards and things for his home, for he and his wife. I didn't know this because those kind of jobs, they usually only come up every 4 or 5 years, because you order a batch and then obviously you use them over a period of years. And then when you've run out, you need to order some more. He hadn't needed to order any more yet. So I wasn't aware that it was even a thing. I got an email from him from a private email address, so I was still none the wiser. We produced the job, and then I phoned him up and said, I just wanted to check, where would you like me to deliver the stationery? And he said, can you deliver it to Stationers Hall? At which point, obviously, I clicked, and I said, if you don't mind me asking, what are you to Stationers Hall? Why do you want me to deliver it there? And he said, well, I'm the clerk. I was like, oh, so you're not just a someone, you're one of the very important people at the hall. Is it feasible? Could I deliver them myself? I would love to have a look around, because I love all the tradition side of things, and I am actually a proper stationer myself, in the fact that I produce the stuff. He invited me down. He absolutely loved the stationery, which was obviously brilliant. We went out for a bit of lunch, and by the end of that, he didn't have to try very hard, but he'd convinced me to put in my application to join.
What a wonderful story, wonderful story. And have you done any printing for stations?
We have, yes. We've done quite a lot for stationers over the last few years. So I achieved my little goal. So I was very, very proud of myself.
Okay, well, I'll have to wind this up in a bit. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble for letting it go on much too long. But it's so fascinating. But tell me, if you, as the chairman of the Young Stationers, Lewis, do you have any one particular thing you would say, this is my aim while I'm chairman?
My aim while I'm chairman is to try and drastically increase the amount of active young stationers. We have a brilliant amount of young stationers now, which is ever growing, especially since I joined, which was about 5 or so years ago now. And yeah, the pool of young stationers is getting bigger and bigger, which is absolutely brilliant. But one of the things that I've always wanted to do is to increase the amount of active members. So people that I know we can't at the moment because obviously the hall is shut, but once it's back open again, have a lot more young people present and known about in the company, because obviously the young people are the future of the company.
And one of those young people who I very much hope very soon, after a grueling interview, might become a liveryman, is you.
Yes, I've got my livery interview on Monday afternoon.
Well, all the very best with that. And it'd be marvellous if it all got through in time for me to be able to clothe you as a liveryman.
That'd be brilliant, yeah.
Been great fun. Thank you so much, Lewis.
Thank you, Master.